different. Okay? Okay, question about this one so far? Okay, then we will move on to okay. This is just for your example. Sometimes because you are writing proposal, so you can have a lot of space to write. But when you are trying to, for example, condense your proposal into papers, okay, and then you may have word limit. So sometimes you may have to make it shorter by integrating materials with procedure. And especially this is more frequent in natural sciences. So as you can see in these short 4 sentences, they have how many actions? First, they have to
cool.
Yeah, they have to cool, and then they have to stirred, and then added, and then warmed, right? So from this one sentence, they have 4 actions. So what I want to point out is the strong differences between disciplines. In natural sciences, the yellow one is the material and the green one is the action. So in natural sciences, because their procedure is usually fixed, so they have a lot of condensed language. So for example, was cooled, stirred, while another thing was added and warmed. One sentence, 4 actions. But it is not true for social sciences. We cannot do this, okay? We need to explain why. So, for example, the activity sheet that we just have, okay, you can see almost recruitment justify. Why this center justify? Why this questionnaire justify? Why I test them the first language and the second language justify, right? They have a lot of justification. But here we do not. And we just have was then allowed to settle, was descended after being washed, filled, washed, transferred, but no justification and parallel structure. Okay, so what I want you to demonstrate is these disciplinary differences in methodology section. And sometimes if your research methods, if your research topic is more leaning toward natural sciences, sometimes you may find similar structure. For example, if you're using call, like right now we have this AR, VR, and some statistical procedure, etc. Sometimes you may find they have similar structure, okay? But if you are more social sciences here, for example, interviews, teaching, etc., then you will more like the activity sheet, that one, okay? More extended and more condensed, okay? So that's the differences, okay? Mm-hmm.
So they didn't need like much citation when they doing the dissertation activities.
For natural sciences, sometimes they don't need a lot of justification statements because for their experiments, they already have a fixed set of procedure. For example, if you want to get this kind of sample, you have to go through step 1B, A, B, C, D. As long as you want to get that sample, always A, B, C, D.
Yeah, but the plagiarism because they like imitate from previous.
Yeah, they imitate previous study.
Is it not the plagiarism?
No, because the how do I say? The procedure is always fixed. For example, if you want to get urine sample, sometimes for athletes, we are not sure if they take drugs, right? So you need to take their urine and to test if they have these drugs, right? The experiment is always the same. You cannot say I use another experiment. Usually, it's the same. But you may add another thing, for example, add another solution or add another step to see if you can identify more drugs. But usually the step is almost similar. Yeah. So we will not say that it's plagiarism because it is you have to do this procedure. Yeah. But you talk about another important thing. Although it is similar procedure, the writing cannot be the same. So that's the point. If you think that the procedure is similar, so you just copy another's writing, then it will be plagiarism. So your writing has to be different, but the procedure can be the same because it has to be the same. Okay? Okay. So then, after talking about the moves, now we will move to tense. Okay? So usually tense is like this. When we're referring to a specific study, then we will use past tense. So when you refer to the participants in your study, you use past tense, were between. Because at that time, they were age 7, but now it's not. Right? So you use past tense, different. But if you are using population, meaning the whole population, for example, all of the students in our program has English proficiency requirement. This is population, and it's whole true, right? So you use present tense, okay? Okay, also when you use conventional materials, okay, which is standard in your field and also familiar to other researchers, you can use present tense. So for example, typical chemical reactor includes something, okay. But if you are using something specifically designed only for your study, then you use past tense. Okay. Also, for just like I said, if you are talking about something that is always all true, you use present tense, right? Okay. But if you are talking about how you specifically design something, you use past tense. Okay. And also for passive voice and active voice, we use passive voice. Okay, we use passive voice when a human agent is manipulating the materials. Okay, so for example, the temperature inside was increased from 0 to 20, and actually it was increased by you, right? But we will just use parentheses or even we will delete, because we do not want others feel that you are manipulating your data. So basically we will use passive voice and delete by who. So for example, participants were interviewed for 20 minutes. You will not say by you. Although everybody know it was you, but you will not say that, because you don't want others feel like your role is too apparent and you may manipulate the interview. Okay. And passive voices also can be used to describe an action involving a non-human agent. Okay. But if you are using an action involving a non-human agent, then a phrase must be included to indicate the agent. So for example, power was supplied by 14 generators. Okay. Okay, and another grammatical structure is that sometimes the temperature increased. Okay, for these two sentences, the temperature increased and the temperature was increased. Actually, they are all grammatically correct, but the situation is different, right? The temperature increased means what? You did other things, but then it increased. But the temperature was increased is that, for example, you heat it and it was increased by you. Okay? Direct influence or indirect influence. It's similar, it's different. Okay? And also, the temperature was measured. Okay? A thermometer researcher. Okay, so here the preposition should be the temperature was measured. Thermometer researcher. What is the preposition here?
With.
Yes, with and by. Yeah, but usually here we will delete, right? Because we don't want human agent influence. So the temperature was measured with a thermometer. But many students will use by instead. So we cannot use, a thermometer cannot measure the temperature. You use thermometer to measure the temperature. Okay? So sometimes this kind of prepositions, the students will be confused. Okay. So these are something related to this active voice and passive voice. So when you use active voice, passive voice, first of all, if you have situation like this, you need to think about whether you have a direct influence on it. So then you need to decide whether you use temperature increased or you use the temperature was increased. Right? Okay? Because they have different meaning. And also preposition. Okay? Whether you are using a tool or whether this tool is really, for example, supplied by generator. Okay? So this is different as well. Okay? Okay, and finally, active voice. Active voice is used when no human is directly responsible for manipulating the material. Okay, so for example, generator provided power. This monitor air pressure. And also, like I said, temperature increased. Right? Because we do not manipulate the material. They do it by themselves. The temperature increased by themselves because of other things, other factors. So whether it is active voice or passive voice, you need to consider. Okay. Sometimes in social sciences, we also need these kind of sentences, especially when you talk about AR, VR, video games, online games. You will talk about many instruments that you will use online. And at that time, these instruments, these games, you may need something like this, some sentences like this. Okay, questions? Okay, if there's no question, then we will take a longer break, and you need to do task 2, which is to organize the sentences. Okay, organize the order of the sentences. First, analyzing, and second, organize, and next week we'll try to write, okay, 3 steps, one by one, okay. Okay, so we will take a longer break, 15 minutes, okay, we will come back at about 37 or 40, okay.